Shirley Dougherty. Mrs. Dougherty is the keeper of Harpers Ferry ghost stories. In fact, she even conducts a special ghost tour in the town. And tonight, Channel 9's Nancy Mathis was on it.
But when you die, and you're dying a natural death, that energy force goes off and joins another field. But what happens to that energy force if you meet a sudden, violent death? Is it possible that that energy then becomes trapped here on this plane? And this is what we say we see when we say we have seen a ghost?
The ghost who lived in Shirley Dougherty's restaurant was the first one to grab her attention. 20 years later, she's an amateur historian and an expert storyteller.
Oh, Nancy, this is Hog Alley.
Here she began the tale of Dangerfield Newby, a freed slave. Frustrated by failed attempts to buy the rest of his family, Newby joined John Brown's raid.
And the people in this town were shooting anything they could from their muskets. One man was shooting 6-inch spikes. It was one of those spikes that found the throat of Dangerfield Newby.
As the story goes, Newby's body was dragged to the alley,
where they left it for the hogs. And today, if you're walking down our streets and you meet a black man about 44 years of age, wearing baggy trousers and an old slouched hat with a terrible scar across his throat, you'll know you've met Dangerfield Newby.
And then there's a story of poor, sad Jenny, who lived in a shack by the railroad. On a cold night, she got too close to an open fire and her dress began to burn.
Now, she didn't know enough to roll. Instead, she panicked and came screaming down this track, begging for help, only to be hit and killed by the evening train. Today, the engineers in Brunswick tell us they don't like coming through Harpers Ferry on a misty night, because frequently they bring their train through that tunnel. They'll see a ball of fire coming down this track, and they will hear an unearthly scream. They finally get their train stopped and get out to look. They'll find nothing.
Up the steps to St. Peter's, she stops to tell the story of the ghost priest.
Because he's so quaint-looking, they'll always speak to him. Good evening, Father, or some such greeting. But he never answers them. And they will turn to watch him make his way. He'll take a few more steps and turn and walk right through the solid wall into the church.
Then there's the story of Jacob, the Union soldier killed by his commanding officers, and Mrs. Harper, who looks out her window at the spot where her gold is buried. Shirley Dougherty has more stories than we have time. Of course, there's always next Halloween. I'm Nancy Mathis, Channel 9 Eyewitness News in Harpers Ferry.
Mrs. Dougherty's Harpers Ferry tours are booked for the rest of the fall, and she will start them again next spring.